She stopped responding. Your messages sit there unread or ignored, and here's what's happening inside you right now. A quiet panic, a low hum of rejection, the urge to reach out again, to explain yourself, to fix whatever invisible thing you think you broke. You want to chase. You want to prove something. You want her to see you're still there. But let me tell you something that might sting a little. That urge, that desperation disguised as persistence, is exactly what's keeping you powerless. And the moment you understand why, everything changes. Most men think silence from a woman is a problem to solve. They treat it like a puzzle with a missing piece. And if they just say the right thing, send the right message, show the right amount of interest, she'll come back. But that's not how attraction works. That's not how respect works. And it's definitely not how power works. When she's ignoring you, she's not waiting for you to try harder. She's watching to see if you'll break. She's testing whether you're the kind of man who folds under pressure or the kind who moves forward with or without her validation. And here's the part that hurts. Every text you send, every attempt to re-engage, every explanation you offer is you failing that test in real time. You've been taught to believe that effort equals care, that showing up repeatedly proves your worth. But in the context of attraction and respect, effort without invitation is just noise. It's you broadcasting insecurity. It's you saying, I need you to respond so I can feel okay about myself. And the brutal truth is this: people don't respect what they don't have to work for. The moment you make yourself too available, too eager, too easy to predict, you lose the one thing that made you interesting in the first place: your autonomy, your ability to walk away, your refusal to beg for attention. So here's what most people won't tell you. When she ignores you, the correct response isn't to chase. It's to disappear. Not out of spite, not to play games, but because you have something more important to do than wait around for someone to decide if you're worth their time. You have a life to build, standards to uphold, a version of yourself that doesn't bend just because someone withdraws attention. And when you actually live that way, the psychology behind her ignoring you genuinely stop needing her to validate your existence, something shifts. You stop being the guy she can ignore. You become the guy she wonders about. If this sounds like the kind of clarity you've been missing, do yourself a favor and subscribe. Not because I need the number, but because you're choosing to be the kind of person who doesn't settle for surface level advice. You're here because you want the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. And that decision alone puts you ahead of most people. Let's go deeper. Let's talk about why her ignoring you affects you so much in the first place. It's not really about her. It's about what her silence triggers inside you. When someone withdraws attention, especially someone you're attracted to, it activates an old survival mechanism in your brain. The fear of rejection, the fear of being unseen, the fear that maybe you're not enough. And because that fear feels so urgent, so visceral, your instinct is to do something, anything, to make it stop. So you text again, you double down, you reach out under the guise of checking in or being friendly or keeping the door open. But what you're really doing is trying to manage your own anxiety. You're not operating from strength. You're reacting from scarcity. And here's the thing about scarcity: it repels people. When you operate from a place of lack, when your actions scream, I need you to like me, you create an energy that pushes people away because no one wants to be someone's emotional crutch. No one wants to be responsible for making you feel whole. Attraction isn't built on need. It's built on choice. And when you chase, when you overinvest in someone who's shown you they're not investing back, you remove all choice from the equation. You become predictable, safe, boring. You become the guy she can ignore without consequence because she knows you'll still be there no matter what she does. Now, let's address the uncomfortable part. Maybe she's ignoring you because she's genuinely not interested. Maybe she met someone else. Maybe she's dealing with her own stuff and you're just not a priority right now. And maybe, just maybe, you did something that turned her off. Not because you're a bad person, but because you showed up in a way that didn't align with who you said you were. You were too available, too eager, too willing to tolerate being treated as an option. And she picked up on that. Women are incredibly intuitive. What happens when you stop chasing when it comes to detecting incongruence? They can sense when a man's words don't match his actions, when his confidence is a performance rather than a state of being. And the moment they sense that, respect starts to erode. But here's the good news. This isn't about her. It never was. This is about you deciding who you're going to be, regardless of how she responds. Because the real power isn't in getting her to text back. The real power is in not needing her to. The real power is in being so grounded in your own value, so clear on your own direction that her silence doesn't shake you. It just informs you. It tells you where you stand, and it gives you the clarity to make a decision. Do I want to invest my time and energy in someone who treats me as optional, or do I want to move forward with people who see my worth without me having to convince them? Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a man who gets ignored by a woman he's been talking to. He notices it. He feels the sting of it, sure, but he doesn't spiral. He doesn't start drafting paragraphs in his head. He doesn't refresh his phone every 10 minutes waiting for a notification. Instead, he shrugs it off and refocuses on what actually matters: his work, his goals, his friendships, his health, the projects that make him come alive. He doesn't erase her from existence out of bitterness. He just stops prioritizing someone who isn't prioritizing him. And then something interesting happens. Days pass, maybe weeks, and she notices. She notices that he didn't chase. She notices that he didn't crumble. She notices that he didn't need her validation to keep moving. And suddenly the dynamic shifts. She starts to wonder. She starts to question. She starts to reach out, not because he played a game, but because he lived his life with integrity, and she realized what she walked away from. But here's the twist. By the time she comes back, he's already moved on emotionally. He's not sitting around waiting for her return. He's not holding space for someone who treated him like a backup option. He's either fully engaged with someone who actually values him, or he's so locked into his own purpose that romantic attention is just a nice bonus, not a necessity. And that's the difference. That's what separates the guy who gets ignored and spirals from destroying her ego. The truth about power dynamics. The guy who gets ignored and ascends. One is still seeking external validation. The other has built his validation internally. So what does this look like in practice? What do you actually do when she stops responding? First, you stop reaching out immediately. No explanations, no closure, seeking messages, no, hey, did I do something wrong? Texts, just silence, not as a tactic, not to manipulate her into responding, but because you respect yourself too much to beg for someone's attention. You give her the space she's clearly asking for, and you use that space to focus on yourself. You hit the gym harder, you double down on your work, you reconnect with friends you've been neglecting, you read that book you've been putting off, you start that project that's been sitting in the back of your mind. You do the things that make you feel alive, that remind you who you are outside of anyone's validation. Second, you examine your own behavior honestly, not from a place of self-blame, but from a place of self-awareness. Were you showing up as your best self, or were you performing? Were you being genuine, or were you trying to be what you thought she wanted? Were you leading your own life, or were you orbiting hers? This isn't about beating yourself up, it's about learning. It's about recognizing patterns so you don't repeat them. Because the truth is, if you were showing up with confidence, with boundaries, with a strong sense of self, and she still chose to walk away, then she wasn't the right person for you. And that's not a loss. That's clarity. Third, you recalibrate your standards. You stop tolerating behavior that doesn't meet them. You stop making excuses for people who don't treat you. The masculine energy she actually respects with respect. You stop convincing yourself that if you just try a little harder, if you just wait a little longer, things will change, because they won't. People show you who they are through their actions, not their words. And when someone shows you they're not interested, when they show you they're not willing to invest, believe them. Don't waste your energy trying to change their mind. Redirect that energy toward people who see your value without needing a sales pitch. Here's what most men don't realize. The moment you stop chasing, the moment you reclaim your power and walk away with your dignity intact, you destroy the dynamic she was operating from. She was used to you being available. She was used to you being predictable. She was used to you being the safe option she could come back to whenever she felt like it. But when you remove yourself from that equation, when you show her that you're not waiting around, you disrupt her sense of control. You become a question mark instead of a certainty. And that question mark has more power than any any paragraph you could ever send. But let me be clear, this isn't about revenge. This isn't about trying to hurt her ego or make her jealous. If that's your motivation, you're still operating from a place of neediness. You're still making her the center of your world, just in a different way. The real shift happens when you genuinely don't care anymore. When you're not doing this to get a reaction. When you're doing this because you've realized your time, your energy, your attention are finite resources, and you're not going to waste them on people who don't value them. That's when you become truly untouchable. That's when you become the kind of man people don't ignore. Let me tell you about the kind of man who embodies this. He's not flashy. He's not loud. He doesn't need to announce his value because it's evident in how he moves. He wakes up with purpose. He has routines that ground him. He knows what he's working toward, and he's relentless rebuilding your self-worth without her validation about it. Not in a toxic hustle culture way, but in a quiet, disciplined, focused way. When he interacts with women, he's present. He's genuine. He's interested, but he's not needy. He doesn't change who he is to impress anyone. He doesn't mold himself to fit someone else's expectations. He shows up as himself. And if that's snorts not enough for someone, he doesn't take it personally. He just moves on. He doesn't argue. He doesn't plead. He doesn't try to convince. He just continues building his life, and the right people either show up or they don't. And he's okay either way. This man doesn't ignore red flags. He doesn't make excuses for disrespect. He doesn't tolerate inconsistency. If someone's actions don't match their words, he doesn't wait around for them to get their act together. He communicates his boundaries clearly. And if those boundaries are violated, he walks not out of anger, not out of ego, but out of self-respect. He understands that the quality of his life is determined by the people he allows into it. And he's selective. Not in an arrogant way, but in a self-preserving way. He knows that his energy is sacred and he protects it accordingly. And when it comes to attraction, this man doesn't chase, he attracts because he's built a life that's compelling. He's interesting because he has interests. He's confident because he's competent. He's magnetic because he's at peace with himself. He doesn't need someone to complete him. He's already whole. And that wholeness, that self-sufficiency, that quiet strength, it's irresistible because in a world full of people begging for attention, the person who doesn't need it stands out. The person who's comfortable walking away has all the power. So what's the takeaway here? What's the real lesson when she's ignoring you? It's this. Her ignoring you is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of her priorities, her availability, her emotional state, or her level of interest, and none of those things are in your control. What is in your control is how you respond. You can either chase, beg, and diminish yourself in the process, or you can walk away, refocus on your own life, and become the kind of person who doesn't need to chase because they're already worth pursuing. What to do instead of chasing. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop caring whether she responds, the moment you genuinely detach from the outcome, you become infinitely more attractive, not just to her, but to everyone. Because people are drawn to those who are secure in themselves. People are drawn to those who don't need external validation to feel okay. People are drawn to those who have boundaries, standards, and the strength to enforce them. And when you embody that, when you live that, you stop being someone people can ignore. You become someone people notice, someone people remember, someone people respect. But even beyond all that, even beyond the possibility of her coming back or attracting someone better, there's something more important happening here. You're reclaiming your self-respect. You're reclaiming your power. You're reclaiming your time. You're deciding that you're not going to let someone else's indifference dictate how you feel about yourself. You're deciding that your worth is not up for debate. You're deciding that you'd rather be alone and at peace than in a dynamic that makes you feel small. And that decision, that mindset shift, that's what changes everything. Not just in your relationships, but in your entire life. Because once you realize that you don't need anyone's approval to move forward, once you realize that you're enough on your own, once you realize that the right people will see your value without you having to prove it, you start operating from a completely different place. You start making decisions based on what you want, not on what you think will keep someone interested. You start saying no to becoming the man who doesn't need to chase things, things that don't serve you. You start saying yes to things that align with your vision. You start living with intention, with clarity, with purpose. And that version of you, that empowered, grounded, self-assured version of you, is the one who doesn't get ignored. That's the one who doesn't have to ask for respect because it's automatically given. So the next time she ignores you, the next time anyone ignores you, remember this. Their silence is not a verdict on your value. It's information. It's telling you where to direct your energy. And the answer is never towards someone who's shown you they don't see what you bring. The answer is always back toward yourself, back toward your goals, back toward your growth, back toward the life you're building that doesn't require anyone's permission or validation to be meaningful. You don't chase. You don't beg. You don't shrink yourself to fit into someone else's idea of what you should be. You stand firm in who you are. You walk away when necessary. You protect your peace. You honor your standards. You focus on your purpose. And you trust that the right people, the people who are meant to be in your life, will show up and stay without you having to convince them. That's the mindset. That's the shift. That's the power. And if you're ready to keep building that mindset, if you're ready to keep choosing yourself, if you're ready to be part of a community that values growth, clarity, and self-respect over games and surface-level advice, then hit that subscribe button. This isn't about following another channel. This is about committing to a standard final thoughts. Your power is in walking away where you show up for yourself first, where you demand respect through your actions, where you build a life so solid that no one's silence can shake you. That's what we're building here. And you're either in or you're not. The choice is yours. You are not defined by who pays attention to you. You are defined by how you respond when they don't. You are not measured by who stays. You are measured by your refusal to beg them to. You are not weakened by their absence. You are strengthened by your ability to move forward without them. That's the truth. That's the standard. That's who you are now. So stop waiting for her to respond. Stop waiting for anyone to validate you. Start living like someone who doesn't need permission to be powerful because you don't. You never did. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner everything changes.